Welcome to Pinstar Basketball Live. Today, we're going to be talking about what every single Toronto Raptor is actually worth. And I know this channel used to have a bit of a rep before we went all narrative based for doing the numbers, for being a channel that was deep into the numbers and the statistics and the analytics. And what I wanted to do was return to form a little bit. First, obviously we did two rants on the Toronto Raptors. First about loss aversion early this morning at 5:30 in the morning. For those of you who caught it, it was a really good live if you can get through the ranting format. And then we did one on Scotty Barnes yesterday about his 5% MVP potential. And I think that, this one sort of completes it because we often talk about what a player is worth. We overpaid Jakob Poeltl 19.5 million. Raptors obviously don't think so, but sure. We talk about, what Emmanuel Quickly should be worth on the trade, on the open market. Is he worth 25? Is he worth 30? Will Orlando steal him? Will San Antonio steal him? We talk about Pascal Siakam, right? We don't want to pay him a max. We don't want to pay him a super max, but it's like, let's get down to the nitty gritty. What are these players actually worth? And let's just be really scientific about it. And let's be even about it. Now, this may not be the perfect process, but I promise you I did some work here. And I want to get to a point where we can at least start to discuss this intelligently in terms of what Gary Trent Jr. might be actually worth. And of course, what a player is worth and what a player gets paid are two completely separate equations. There's a lot that goes into that. And so, what I've done is I've effectively sorted out a few columns. The first column, hold on, let me just look at this. The first column is contract value, like what a player's current contract value is. The second is win shares. The third is games played. The fourth is fair value based on those games played and the win shares. Now, there's going to be a bit of a caveat. There are certain players who only played certain games for the Raptors, but they played elsewhere for someone else. We didn't count what they did with New York or Indiana. We didn't count what Bruce Brown did with Indiana. We didn't care about it. But in order to get from fair value to gameplay adjusted value, we would basically divide it by the number of games they played for the Raptors and then multiply it by 70, 70 being an expected number of games that you would expect that person to play. Why don't we use box plus minus or a rate stat like PER or something like that? Well, because obviously you pay your starters more than you pay your bench because your starters are worth more because they play more. It makes sense, right? So win shares kind of even that out, right? VORP is even better, but let's just use win shares for simplicity's sake. Then there is a gameplay adjusted, salary in which we adjust it to 70 games. Then we go to age adjusted. Now this is where things get a little bit, you know, floofy, if you will, because I'm taking some liberties here. There are certain boosts and certain boosts added to players for being a certain age. Obviously, age comes at a premium when it comes to contract value. A 20-year-old and a 30-year-old do not earn the same amount of money. They are not valued the same on the open market. It's very rare for a 20-year-old to even be on the open market unless they get waived. So ultimately, there is a bit of a premium that comes with age. I've done this in the following ways. If you're 23 and under, you get a double your value in terms of your gameplay adjusted salary. You get a double value on your age adjustment. So a guy like RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, guys like this who are 23 and under, even though RJ just makes the cutoff, they get a double value. This is not a value that they will receive post 23, but they get it for now. If you are 24 to 25, you get a half. So it's a 1.5 multiplier. Again, this is all factoring for the theoretical, upside that you're going to get better. If you're 26 to 29, you get nothing. You're just in your prime. And if you're over 30, you get a 20% dock on your value, right? Which is that because in theory you are on your decline, then I will factor that into your value as as an asset. Then there is, so the age adjustment, and then there's factor adjustment. Now, this is where things get like perhaps a little bit crazy for some people, where you start to factor how valuable the player type is, right? So a Chris Boucher, a guy who doesn't really create for a lot of people, he's more of a hustle big and offensive. It doesn't matter that his win share value is high relative to a guy like, who's a playmaking wing or a 3-and-D wing. His player type is worth less. And so there are very many factors that went into, playmaking talent, portability, versatility, defensive versatility, how many positions you play, that all adjusted for a multiplier. And sometimes that multiplier was a negative multiplier. So with a guy like Chris Boucher, he actually lost value. So a guy like Chris Boucher, he went from 8.4, in the gameplay adjusted value to 6.72 on the age adjusted. And then when it went for factor adjusted, he actually took another dip to 5.3. So I came up with something. It is fair across the board. And we're also not just going to talk about Raptors. We're going to talk about all the Raptors. We're going to talk about Emmanuel Quickly and Gary Trent. We're going to explore momentarily Jonte Porter. But we're also going to talk about other players that are not on the Raptors, specifically six players. One, Derek Jones Jr. Number two, Kelly Oubre. Number three, Pascal Siakam in Indiana. Number four, Derek Lively II, who is worth so much more. And when I describe him as this steal of a player, people don't realize it, but I think you'll realize it once you see how I've broken his contract down. Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic, in terms of to illustrate the point of what superstars are actually worth if you could pay them what they were actually worth. Okay, and I have a screen for all of this. Couple of things here. Median team salary. This is what I've used. So basically, the goal of this is to kind of get to the baseball moneyball element of what is a win worth in the NBA. Okay, what I have determined a win is worth is based on two numbers. Number one, the median salary in the NBA was a 165,635,000 by the Chicago Bulls. Sorry, 165 million. Yeah, 635,000. That is the Chicago Bulls' current salary. They are the median team. They're 15th team, in the league from the top in terms of median salary. And so while they underperformed, the median team wins, which was a four-way tie between the Lakers, Miami Heat, Indiana Pacers, and Philadelphia 76ers, if I'm not mistaken. So median salary, median wins comes up to 3.524 million per win. You have to figure this out somehow, right? So ultimately, if you multiply 3.524 by 47, you should get 165 unless I'm completely stupid. Okay. So now let's get to the Toronto Raptors element of this. Okay. And this is where we're at. So let's talk about it. This is a screen. You can screenshot it, whatever. You can dissect it if you want. But let's start with RJ Barrett. His contract value for next year is 25.794. Let's just keep it to one decimal. So $25.8 million for RJ Barrett. Bruce Brown is at 23 million. Jakob Pertl, and Bruce Brown's a team option. So, naturally everyone knows Bruce Brown is not worth 23 million or anywhere close to it. But ultimately, the Raptors keep selling themselves on the fact that he is, this valuable player type. He won a championship in Denver. Maybe there's a bit of a boost for that, in terms of how teams view him around the league. Then there's Jakob Pertl that most Raptor fans swear is very, very overrated. I apologize for all the hammering. It just started right as I started the video, so I apologize. My neighbor must not be a Toronto Raptor fan. Okay, so Jakob Pertl, 19.5 million. Kelly Olynyk, 12.8 is his extension that kicks in next year. 10.8 for the expiring contract of Chris Boucher. I apologize. This hammering is so annoying. It's happening right over my head. Okay. Then we get Scotty Barnes on a rookie on his rookie deal. He is at 10.1 million, and he's eligible to sign an extension this offseason. We got Grady Dick at 4.7. Jalen McDaniels, who is going to get ethered in this entire valuation at 4.7. Ochai Abaji at 4.3 and Javon Freeman-Liberty at 1.8. Then you have two free agents, Gary Trent Jr. and Emmanuel Quickly. Gary Trent Jr. is an unrestricted free agent. Emmanuel Quickly is a restricted free agent. IQ is rumored to be in the 25 North. And Gary Trent is rumored to be in the 20 North. And as you're going to see in my factor adjusted, one of these players would actually be underpaid at that, and one of them would be overpaid. And then you got Jonte Porter that I just threw in for fun, just kind of to show people why I thought he was so great for the Toronto Raptors. And then we have Derek Jones Jr. and Kelly Oubre, who are each earning a minimum contract. We have Pascal Siakam, who the Raptors moves on because they didn't want to pay him what he wanted to be paid. And I want to show you why that is. Derek Lively, who is a rookie, he was a lottery pick. I think the 11th overall pick in the last year's draft, making 4.77 million, but beasting in the playoffs. And I want to show you what he's worth. And then you have two superstars, arguably the two best players in the NBA, Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic. And I want to show you the value of getting, quote, one of those guys, because Masai Ujiri said, we got one of those guys. And that's the big thing. And I want to show you why that's so important for team building to get one of those guys. Okay, so in terms of win shares, you can see it. The green is a positive, the red is a negative. I wish I could have done this for everything, but really, the only two negatives in terms of win shares for the Toronto Raptors this year were Jalen McDaniels and Ochai Agbaji, right? In terms of the players we're looking at, those are the negative guys. In terms of positives, it's pretty much everybody else, right? And Scotty Barnes led the team in win shares, but because he only played 60 games, his fair value was 15.1 million, which is probably shockingly low. But wait till we get to the adjustments, right? Because again, he's 22 years old. Okay, you do not pay a 22-year-old for the player they are. You pay them for the player they're going to be. If Scotty Barnes hits the open market right now, he's a max player 100% of the time. I think every single team, if they had the cap space, would sign Scotty Barnes to damn near, if not exactly, a max or a super max, something of that sort. It's the same thing for guys like Paolo. It's the same thing for someone like Alperen Şengün. If Alperen Şengün was on the open market, Alperen Şengün right now would be like $40+ million player. These young players who really have a massive impact, especially they have creation, responsibility, load, projectable upside in terms of being all stars. There's always a premium that you pay for that upside. Okay, now is that upside always real? No, sometimes it's not real. Sometimes those players do not live up to that upside, but a lot of times it is. Okay, let me make myself a little bit bigger. Now that you guys have had a moment to sort of scan this screen, because I don't want to make myself super small. Maybe I just made myself a little bit too small. There, hold on. Is this? Can you still see it? How about this? Nope. Now I'm just off. How's this? Okay, I think this is a fair compromise. Now I'm small enough, but I'm not so small that I'm buried on the screen. Okay, Lord, if you exist, please stop this. Okay, stop this person doing construction over my head is so distracting. Okay, power through, man. It's like the timing of it. Hadn't heard these people literally all day, and then boom, start a live, and they're just like, we got to hammer the floor right now. Who's hammering the floor, anyways? All right, let's move on. In terms of Bruce Brown, as you see, gameplay adjustment, right? Because he only played 32 games for the Raptors. This is his value. Gameplay adjusted. He only played 34 games with the Raptors. Gameplay adjusted $5 million. That is bad. And because he's 26, 27 years old, there's no age up adjustment and or down adjustment because he's in his prime. So he ends up at 5 million. One thing I think Raptor fans would be surprised by is that my factor adjustment for RJ Barrett, because of his creation and 3-point shooting, and he didn't get any boost for being a defensive player or any defensive versatility or portability, etc. He's still a pretty high usage player, but he does factor really well relative to his reputation. Now, when I started this, I had an idea of what certain players were worth. And I can tell you, I probably thought RJ was worth closer to 18. The fact that he ends up scoring 28 tells me that the Raptors made a really, really good deal. If you think about RJ Barrett, I mean, we think about like, okay, did the Raptors win the deal with the New York Knicks, right? Really hard to convince anybody in the NBA media that the Raptors won that deal because OG Anunoby was so great for the Knicks, right? But if you look at the combined value of RJ and Emmanuel Quickly, you get to almost $60 million of actual value, right? If you add in the value of that second round pick that they got from Detroit, which I don't know, I would say is probably worth around $3-4 million, or two to 3 million, 2 to 4 million. That's an aggregate total of like 64 million. So in order for the Raptors to have lost that deal, in my mind, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn would have to be worth more than $65 million, which I don't think they are. That's just me. I don't think Precious Achiuwa is worth more than $6. I don't think Malachi Flynn is worth $1. And I don't think that OG Anunoby is worth more than 40. So this is why I've always believed that the Raptors won that deal. Even if conventional wisdom says, yes, you did lose the best player in that trade, it's not by a lot. The gap between OG Anunoby and Emmanuel Quickly is not so significant. It's there for sure. OG is going to be worth more. If we did a factor value for OG, I'm pretty sure he would end up at about 35 to 37. That's not a far cry from where Emmanuel Quickly ended up, in fairness. And largely, Emmanuel Quickly ended up there because of his age, because of his shooting, because of his deep threat, because of his evolving playmaking. There's a lot of things that went in Emmanuel Quickly's favor. Another guy, that I think fared a little bit better than I thought he would was Jakob Poeltl, right? Now he loses value for age. He didn't get any boost for age adjustment. And he actually loses value for factor adjustment largely because he doesn't shoot. He's not overly positionally versatile. He's not the easiest guy to build around. Like if you have an offense with Jakob Pertl, it doesn't exactly offer you a ton of, let's call it, positional versatility around him, right? Um, I will go up and actually like I don't know if I want to like. I wish I could bring this camera, go up the elevator, and just pound on these guys' doors. Like, stop it, bro! It's past 5 o'clock. Construction is supposed to stop at 5 o'clock in my building, so that's why I'm a little bit upset by this. Okay, then you get a guy like Grady Dick, right? And Grady Dick added 0.3 win shares the entire year, right? And his fair value is 1.05 million. Not exactly the greatest value add for a 13th overall pick. Grady did not have like the greatest season. If I were to just look, however, at his numbers in the second half of the season instead of his first half, this would get a lot better, right? So even when I don't do that, what I do with age adjustments for rookies is the model was 4 million added plus double, right? For lottery picks, that's what I did. So I did that same thing with Derek Lively, and that's just how I believe the NBA values lottery talent. Okay. So 4 million added. That's why, like Jalen Suggs, for instance, as a rookie, Jalen Suggs had a horrible rookie season. It was actually worse than Grady Dick's rookie season. He was still the fifth overall pick. If you wanted to, if the Magic had waived Jalen Suggs after his rookie season, I guarantee you someone would have paid more than $8 million to get him. And that's why, right? These young players retain this value. And our goal here is not to be so blind to the numbers that we ignore the reality of how people actually value assets. Two players that I think, maybe you could have some doubts about. Number one, Jalen McDaniels, right? His age adjusted value is negative 3.9 million. He cost the Raptors last year 4.7 million, which means Jalen McDaniels underperformed his contract by close to $9 million. That's tough. That's a negative on your thing. Now, if you just think about it from the positive and negative balance, if you have a negative $10 million guy on your sheet, and I mean, again, this is not even that bad, right? I mean, as a small contract, you could probably waive it if you really wanted to. But imagine those teams that have a guy like a Jordan Poole, right? Who is a negative win share guy, but makes like plus 20 million. How much is that guy underperforming his contract by? He's probably underperforming his contract by $30 million. So when you get a guy whose contract value is like negative 30 million, how much positive do you have to put around it just to break even? See what I mean? This is just very basic. One guy that I think would be of a lot of interest to Raptor fans is Chris Boucher, right? And Kelly Olynyk, the newly minted, guys. And both these guys suffered a little bit on the age adjustment because they're both older than 31. So Chris Boucher ends up with an age adjusted value of 6.72. And Kelly Olynyk ends up at an age adjusted value of 12 million, which is honestly pretty good. Like 12 million is not bad. Gameplay adjusted, he's 15 million. As you can see, the zero point 0.8 qualifier puts him at 12 million. 12 million is pretty much exactly what the Raptors signed Kelly Olynyk for. So per my model, Kelly Olynyk is actually worth exactly what the Raptors signed him for. Jalen McDaniels is not. Now, in terms of Ochai Agbaji, I believe he is worth around $2 million, which is exactly a minimum contract. Okay. Not great, but let's see. Things do change. Javon Freeman Liberty, another guy who sort of outperformed his two-way slot. He's worth around 4.2 million on the open market for me. Grady Dick, again, tough season. He's worth $11.27 million in the open market. Scotty Barnes, who didn't like really finish the year super strong. He started out this season on track. If we just stopped this entire model after Scotty played game 40, I think we would have ended up at the factor adjustment model of around $64 million, which would have been like a clearly max player. Right now, he's still a max player, but it's not nearly as crazy as Luca and guys like that, right? Like it's not really even that crazy at all. And there's a lot of, age adjustment stuff that he's going to lose after 24. And so the goal is by 24, you have to make up the hypothetical upside with actual upside. Yeah. Um, SP saying, if you were to have Jakob shoot 500 threes per day over the summer and you rework his shooting form, would it hurt to have him try? Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an NBA trainer. Certainly somebody should try, but I'm sure someone has. And it's just not his game. And maybe there's a pre-existing injury that prevents him from shooting. He's not like I know a lot of people bring up guys like Brook Lopez as guys who just started shooting threes, or a guy like Chris Bosh. But if you watch Chris Bosh or Brook Lopez in college or even in their early years, they could always shoot, man. Jakob Poeltl has been a poor free throw shooter for a very long time. There's really no shooting upside with him. I don't know why that is. He just does not shoot. That being said, I remember a long time ago watching Jakob Pertl's pre-draft stuff, and I think they had him do some corner three drills. This might be psychosomatic or like mental at this point, because I saw him hit quite a few threes in that workout. So who knows, man? I have no idea. He's an NBA player. I frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if every single NBA player could hit at least 2 out of 10 in an open gym from three. At least, like even the worst shooter in the NBA can probably hit 2 out of 10 in an open gym. But in the game, is it worth it? I don't know. Will Jakob Poeltl ever be the type of shooter that teams respect? I doubt it. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about some non-Raptor examples. I mean, the screen is here for you guys to see. Like it's like a choose your own adventure. You can make of it what you want. But let's talk about some non-Raptors, because I do think this is interesting. A lot has been made of Derrick Jones Jr. for the Dallas Mavericks, and how much value he has added, and how much the Dallas Mavericks deserve credit for signing him on a minimum contract. And also earlier in the year, Kelly Oubre, we talked a lot about Kelly Oubre being on a minimum contract, and how crazy that was. So those guys added a combined 6.1 win shares, which is a lot considering like where you see the rest of the Raptors in this equation. Um, their fair value ends up at 13 million. So Kelly Oubre outperformed his contract by 11.5 million dollars, $11.6 million, and Derrick Jones Jr. right now is outperforming his contract by 15 million, right? 15.1 million, right? So that's just crazy. Like that, to get that type of win on the margins, and like that's the type of win that the Raptors got with like Fred VanVleet on his rookie contract, right? Like if you had looked at Fred VanVleet on his rookie contract, or OG Anunoby, or even Pascal Siakam on his rookie contract, like Pascal Siakam on the last year of his rookie contract was a massive, and I mean massive, massive, massive boost. So Fred and Pascal being on their rookie deals when the Raptors won the championship, or at least I think Fred signed like I don't know 8 million, 9 million. He signed a pretty cheapy contract. Those guys being so affordable, Norm still being relatively affordable at that point, I believe that contributed significantly to the Raptors' ability to win a championship. And ultimately, it's guys like Ochai Abaji, Jalen McDaniels, Grady Dick. If one of these guys who's making, like you think about it, you're paying Ochai, Jalen McDaniels, and Grady Dick a combined 13, 14 million dollars. Okay, and you're not getting a single win share out of those three guys combined. That's a lot of money to waste, right? Now, let's talk about a player who actually did earn their contract, even though they're a bit of a controversial figure in Raptors land right now, which is Jonte Porter. He had 0.7 win shares in 26 games played. The fair value on Jonte Porter, I mean, he made a minimum contract. He was a two-way guy, right? He made two. Okay, so he made less than $2 million this year. Fair value on him was 2.46. Gameplay adjusted was 6.62. Age adjusted, given that he was still 24, is 9.93. $9.93 million. Now, factor adjusted, I've just written banned, which is funny because for Jalen McDaniels, I wrote China, but that's the point. That's the type of win the Raptors need. The Raptors need to find another Jonte Porter, or another Terrence Davis, or another, rookie Fred VanVleet, someone of that sort who can jump in and, kind of man that spot of 7, 8, 9, 10. What the Mavericks right now are getting from Jaden Hardy is a really good example of getting value. And the Raptors have a ton of avenues to get value on the margins. I will kill whoever's ahead of me doing this. I don't know if you guys can hear this constant tapping, but it is the most annoying thing I think I've ever endured in this room. Like, and the timing of it is just awful, because I wanted to do a 30-minute live, and this guy's just going to bang for the full 30 minutes. Okay. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. Okay. Christian Koloko was another example. Right? Of a guy who had that potential. Now, the Raptors have an ability, potential. ability to win on the margins with the 19th overall pick, 31st overall pick, potentially. Ante Foe saying, "Nah, your mic is great. I never hear that." So now what I'm doing is I'm reacting to something that my audience is not even being bothered by, but I myself am being bothered by it. Maybe this is a lesson in Zen Buddhism where I just need to train it out. Like that will be the next evolution of Pantera basketball that I can get over the ice cream truck outside, which I clearly hear, and also the construction above my head. Um, DKAR music saying you guys need Tristan Silva. Okay, so here's the point. With guys like Tristan da Silva and any type of when you think about how do you win on the margins at the 19th and 31st overall pick, you have to immediately start to think about not just taking the best player, but the best asset. Thinking best player available means that Chris Boucher is a better player than Bruce Brown, right? Because per the win shares and per the analytics, he is a better player than Bruce Brown. He's not worth more than Bruce Brown, though. If Chris Boucher and Bruce Brown hit the open market right now, two things can be true. Chris Boucher is a better player. Bruce Brown will make more money. Why? Why? Bruce Brown is more versatile. Bruce Brown can, in theory, at least shoot. He has positional versatility and portability to fit in with different lineups. He's been a key contributor recently on a championship run, and he is a little bit younger. When you talk about a guy like Tristan da Silva, you're talking about an older player who is rather one-dimensional offensively as a stretch four, who's a little bit undersized, maybe gives up a little bit defensively. Tristan da Silva is the exact type of player that will probably not win big on the margins. Now, he is someone who is highly likely to succeed in the NBA being what he is, but he's not a big gamble up on upside. A guy like Isaiah Collier, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. Now, again, chances of Isaiah Collier being successful versus Tristan da Silva, yeah, you'll say the chances of Tristan da Silva hanging around in the league for 10 years is far greater than the odds of Isaiah Collier, hanging around the league for 10 years. I get that. But consider the actual upside, the max upside on what an Isaiah Collier could be, right? To again, this is the DJ Wagner. This is like the batting for ultimate upside. Kalel Ware, stretch big who can block shots, right? What is a stretch big who can block shots actually worth on the open market? It's worth a tremendous amount, man. I can't even, like that's one of the most valuable archetypes. So when you look at a Kalel Ware, if he's there at 31 because someone was sour on his draft interview or whatever, if you believe that there is even a 5 to 8% chance that he can become what he's going to become, that's a gamble worth taking. Again, this is straight up money ball, bro. It is. Let me just pull this off the screen. If you need to go back to it, you can certainly scroll back. But I'm just kind of exhausted of seeing myself so small on the screen. Let me just break this down. I do have a screening to get to, so this is going to last a maximum another 5-6 minutes. Put it this way. I didn't even talk about. Oh man, I missed the part about Luca and Derek Lively. My bad. Pascal Siakam is another big example. So okay, this live is going to go another 10 minutes. My bad. I got distracted with all that stuff. So beyond Derek Jones Jr. and Kelly Oubre, we have Pascal Siakam right now. Pascal Siakam earned $37.9 million for three grand total in Indiana. So this is his Indiana numbers, not his Toronto numbers. He added a grand total of 3.9 win shares through his 41 games in Indiana. Okay. This is not exact science, but the fair value on that is 13.74 million prorated to 70 games is $23.45 million. And because he is on the downside of his career and is looking for a 4-year contract, I age adjusted his contract value to $18.76 million. Now, he is a former champion. He is a former All NBA guy. He does have elite shot making ability in spurts. He is positionally versatile, as in that he can fit into different types of offensive sets and play different roles on offense. He does have some shooting upside. And so all of those things put together put me at a annual value for Pascal Siakam of $25.326 million. Okay. Here's the issue. I don't think in a million years he's going to settle for 25.3 million. I think he's going to want 45 plus, which means that on an average year for the next 4 years, if he even maintains relative regression, Relative. Like I'm saying, like if he doesn't fall off a cliff, you're going to lose contract value every single year on Pascal Siakam by about $20 million. And if that contract is ascending, it will become like Alonzo Ball, Bradley Beal type of situation where you're going to lose maximum on that. In order to make up for that, of course, the Indiana Pacers can say, well, we have Benedict Mathurin still on a rookie contract, so that covers 1 year. We have Jarris Walker that we have really high hopes for. That can cover 2, 3 years of that value. Because again, if you lose money somewhere, you're getting it somewhere else, right? I don't think Serge Ibaka was necessarily worth the $20 million the Raptors were paying him, and I'm not really sure Kyle Lowry was worth the full $30 million. He was close to worth the $30 million, but the goal in the end is to pay $160 million and get $250 million of value. That's how you win championships, right? I mean, and to illustrate that point, look at the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I have 3 Dallas Mavericks on this list that I thought were key and very important. Derek Jones Jr. at 2.0, not $2.2 million, the minimum contract. Then we have Luka Doncic and Derek Lively. Okay, Derek Lively makes $4.7 million, and he's a $4.8 million, and he is a rookie. Okay, he added 4.9 win shares in just 55 games. Prorated fair value is $17.24 million, which is already more than triple what he makes. Adjust that for games played, because he only played 55 games and he certainly could have played 70 if it was in the rotation, is 21 million. So he's already 400% underpaid. Okay. Now I adjust for age, and we're talking open market, Derek Lively, we get to $47.88 million. Then we factor adjust, which is like he doesn't shoot, he's a role big, he's a bit of a role player, etc. We still get to a fair value, given that he's still 19 years old or 20 years old, of $38.3 million. So the Dallas Mavericks paid Derek Lively and Derek Jones Jr. a combined $6.8 million and got back a combined value of over $50 million. That's called 10xing it, bro. That's more. That's like they're getting 10 times. They're 10 times underpaid, and that's it. And then speaking of underpaid, Luka Doncic, right? $40.06 million is what he makes this year. He added 12 win shares, 70 games played, no adjustments for games played. A bit of an adjustment of 1.5 for age, because he's still 23 or 24 years old. And then we factor adjust for his creation, load, responsibility, shot making, all of it, and how much better he makes his teammates. We get to a fair market value for Luka Doncic of $95 million. Okay. That makes him a little bit more valuable than Nikola Jokic. And that's partially just because of age. If he was the same age as Nikola Jokic, he'd be worth slightly less. But consider this: in an NBA where the cap is what it is, there's a max that you can pay certain guys like LeBron, Kobe, etc. And those guys are always underpaid if you have a real one. Now, if you are a team that is going to pay Jerry Stackhouse the same amount of money as the Lakers want to pay Kobe Bryant, because you decide Jerry Stackhouse is the best max player you can get, well, guess what? You're already starting at a considerable disadvantage, right? This is team building 101. The most important team building piece is Luka. That's your most important team building piece. The second most important team building piece is your Derek Lively. Your third most important team building piece is your Derek Jones Jr. You could also throw an Emmanuel Quickley in there as well, right? Emmanuel Quickley massively out earned his last year contract. I think he was making like $3 million or something like that, 2.9, 3 million, whatever. He was making very little money because he was a late first round pick. Emmanuel Quickley is eligible for an extension, and my factor adjustment model says as long as the Raptors don't cross 30 million, they're getting fair value on Emmanuel Quickley. Now, a lot of people won't agree with that, but I really price shooting as being a very valuable thing. That's why Grady Dick is worth $11 million, despite only averaging $0.3 million. 0.3 win shares. And it's not just standstill shooting. The factor adjustment model adjusts for movement shooting. Emmanuel Quickley has movement shooting potential. He is not greatest movement shooter, but he has movement shooting potential. He has defensive upside. The only thing that really, skews Emmanuel quickly down and maybe makes him less valuable than other players is his size. Size and positional versatility, defensive versatility. Can he guard three positions? Well, if he could guard three or four positions, he'd be worth a little bit more on the factor adjustment. I think 32 might be a little bit high. And if I had to estimate, I think Emmanuel quickly is worth around 28. So somewhere between his age adjusted model and his factor adjusted model is where I would put Emmanuel quickly. Now, Gary Trent Jr. at 14.16 million versus 8. Again, my factor adjustment model factors for, his shot making ability, his age, his upside, his connection and synergy with Scotty Barnes on and off the court. There's a lot of stuff that makes him more valuable to the Raptors necessarily. And also the lack of shooting on the roster, you probably pay a bit of a premium because of how much you need what he does. But that being said, if you start paying Gary Trent Jr. $20 million, now you are losing that deal on an average of $6 million a year. $6 million you have to then make up somewhere else down the line. Now, teams like the Denver Nuggets have, made a habit of overpaying players that fit with Jokic. Guys like Michael Porter Jr. Is Michael Porter Jr. worth the money he makes? He makes no. Is Jamal Murray worth the money that he makes? Close, but barely. Right? He's close, but because of his injury history, but Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon maybe are borderline not really worth the money that you pay them. And the reason you pay them that is because you're underpaying Jokic by $50 million. That's the cushion. That cushion allows you to pay for these other guys. And frankly, we're seeing what the cost of overpaying guys versus the cost of underpaying guys is, because the gap between Dallas, who finds themselves up 3-1 against Minnesota, versus Denver, who is at home right now, is really that Dallas won the battle of the margins. Dallas got value. Whereas, if, okay, give you an example. If the Denver Nuggets could extract the same amount of value that the Dallas Mavericks are extracting from Derek Lively, from a Christian Brown, who is valuable, or a Peyton Watson, who's valuable in spurts, would they not have had a much better chance against the Minnesota Timberwolves? Of course they would have. And that's the whole point here, right? So in order for the Raptors to win on the margins, they need to bat high upside. That is a really important part of winning on the margins. You do have to bat high upside, which means that you have to be a bit of a contrarian. You have to believe. It's not as simple as, oh, we fell ass backwards into Victor Wembanyama. You have to see upside when upside is not proven, which means, getting an RJ Barrett, uh, who was making $23 million last year, and getting him up to a player who's worth around 25 to 28, when he himself at the time was considered by many executives as a toxic or poison asset or whatever, which means the rest of the league valued him at like 13 million, which is the only way that a player, if RJ Barrett, let's say the Knicks hadn't decided to trade RJ Barrett, let's say they had waived him instead. What is RJ Barrett worth on the open market to the average NBA team? What is the average NBA team willing to pay RJ Barrett? Not the proven version that we saw with the Raptors, with the elevated shot making and the better decision making and the better passing, not all of that. I'm saying RJ Barrett as he was in the Knicks, with the shooting woes and the inconsistencies and the inconsistent defense and all the reputation. Let's just say the Knicks just said, fuck it, we can't trade him. We're buying him out. We're waiving him. What is the next contract that RJ Barrett gets? Kind of like the same situation James Wiseman is in right now. What is the next contract James Wiseman gets? Same contract. What is the next iteration of RJ Barrett's contract? I'm going to guess that someone out there is going to sell themselves on upside and his pedigree as a high school player, Gator National Player of the Year, etc. And they're going to sign him to maybe 55 million over 3 years, which means that for the Raptors to take on a contract with 3-4 years left on it at an average value of around $26 million, that the Raptors must have believed, the Knicks and the rest of the league believed that he was worth that little. So the Raptors paid a bit of a premium, right? They paid a little bit of a cost here. And potentially that cost was washed away by the number of years he has on his contract versus the number of years that OG had on his contract. And so this is something also worth thinking about, that why did the Raptors get so little for OG or so little for Pascal? Again, in theory, we've heard OG three first round picks and a young player, whatever, what the Raptors wanted. But then as you got closer and closer to the trade deadline and these guys became more or less rentals, the Raptors held on too long, and suddenly the flexibility of their contract, which was previously an asset, became a detriment because now they are expiring contracts and you could lose them for nothing. And the rest of the league also wakes up to that. And they realize that now by, I mean, technically, I know it's not going to probably not going to happen, but the Knicks could lose OG for nothing. It's possible, right? The Indiana Pacers probably not going to happen. But they could lose Pascal Siakam for nothing. This value that they gave away factored in some element of risk that they could, in theory, lose this player for nothing. So it also factors in that they're getting less value for that player for the year that they signed up for because, they didn't have Pascal Siakam for the first 41 games of the year. The Knicks didn't have OG in training camp. So in theory, if you'd made this deal with the Knicks in training camp, you probably get a better first round pick. Then, you probably get a first round pick instead of a second round pick or something like that. Or maybe you get an extra pick in the deal, you know? So again, holding on to assets for too long. And I think that this could be a cautionary tale for what the Raptors need to think about with Bruce Brown, because of course there's this entire debate of whether you pick it up or whether you drop the option or pick up the option, etc. But if you pick up the option and you start thinking about moving him at the deadline and saying, okay, we're going to find a buyer. Well, look at the screen that I presented here. Bruce Brown is, by my estimation, worth $8 million, which means you believe someone out there wants him so badly that they're going to pay $23 million for him. This might be something that backfires on the Raptors because I don't think other GMs are so stupid. So if you're not, you might be selling yourself on this idea, and they have been selling themselves on this idea that Bruce Brown is an asset. But frankly, he's not worth what he makes. He's not even close to worth what he makes. He hasn't been ever worth $22 million. Even with the Denver Nuggets at the height of his powers, he was at most worth $14 million. So the fact that the Pacers overpaid him on this very, movable contract that offers, truth be told, Bruce Brown will lose value the second you pick up that team option. The most value he will ever have is on draft night. Most. If the Raptors do not trade Bruce Brown on draft night, they are making a very big mistake. Mark my words. All right. I hope this has been super informative. I hope it was relatively structured. I hope you'll hit subscribe and like this video and leave me a comment in terms of what you think I got right or what you think I got wrong. I got to go off and go to a screening of one of the films that I DP'd earlier this year, and I'm really excited about that. Which means I got to shower and stuff. I hope the construction wasn't too distracting, and I hope my reacting to the construction was not too distracting. I'll see you guys tomorrow post game. And yes, I am still releasing that Bill Walton video. It is done, but it had some copyright issues on a song choice that I made. It is a licensed song, so I have no idea why it hit copyright, but YouTube has just been really, really finicky about copyright with this channel lately. So sucks. Anyways, hopefully that Bill Walton video comes out today, but definitely check it out. All right. Talk to y'all later. Have a great one and peace.